Hey folks, this is just a primer video on understanding how this boiler system works that we have here at Islington Village, along with the boiler tank and the heat exchanger over here. You're going to see, first of all here, I'll give you a quick overview of what we have here. Generally we have the air intake and the exhaust. We have our boiler here. Here we have a hot water tank, or really a reservoir. It doesn't actually heat water, it just holds the water. And here we have our famous thermostat. It actually is a thermostat. We have one upstairs, and then we have this secondary one here. So a lot of people have been having problems with how to adjust this thermostat, and essentially heating problems in wintertime. So there's 3 or 4 things that can happen that you won't get heat through your house. So one thing you need to check for is make sure your green summer button here is not pushed in. It needs to be pushed, or it needs to be out. If the summer is on, this Quietside system is divided into 2 sections. One to heat your hot water. The other section is to heat your house. And that actually flows through these larger tubes out through here and then into your heat exchanger. What happens is that when you push the summer on, it actually shuts down this side of the heat exchanger. It actually will not heat. Even if you call for heat upstairs, you turn the heat switch on and the blower comes on, it'll turn on the blower on the heat exchanger here, but it will not actually turn on the Quietside boiler. So it's just going to be blowing air and nothing will come out. A quick check is if you put your hand on the pipe, if it's lukewarm or it's the temperature slightly higher than what's in here, then you know right away that your system's running, and that's fine. If it's not, you should check your summer button. The other thing we need to make sure is that this center dial here is set to max. Now, this will essentially put full temperature through these pipes. If it's any less, so what happens here is that this is a thermometer, this is a thermostat. So up here we have a vent. Now some of you will have actually nothing there, it'll just be a hole. And a lot of people are asking, why is there a heater in here when you got all this heat anyways going through these pipes and that? The reason is that it needs to have a positive ventilation. In other words, the air in here needs to be pushed out through these doors. In case you leave this door open, the air needs to go out through the door. It can't come in from the garage, because there's a risk that if you leave your vehicle running, those fumes will get into here and then get through the house, circulate through the house, and poison everyone in the house. So that's the reason why that is. But what it does, though, unfortunately, is that it adds heat to this area in wintertime. And this area can get very hot. And if it reaches a temperature, so let's say you have it set at 80, right? Once it hits 80 in this room, it will no longer heat this heat exchanger. It'll actually turn it off. So what you need to do is make sure this goes right to max. I would also maybe tape off half that hole. You still want to maintain pressure in here, but you want to make sure that you can tape that hole off by half, just to reduce the amount of heat coming in here. The other thing is here, a lot of people are having a little bit of issue also with their hot water, and their heating source here. I generally keep it around 160, so I like my hot water very, very hot. And we have a hot water exchanger here. Now some people are saying, why do you have a hot water exchanger here when you have a boiler? It's somewhat of a waste, and it is somewhat of a waste in terms of heat and that. But what it does is that it provides hot water for your dishwasher and for your taps instantly. If you didn't have this tank, what would happen was that 2 things can happen. One thing is that the boiler would kick in when you turn on the hot water, but that hot water would take up to about a minute to reach your tap, because the whole system needs to kick in, it needs to heat it up, and by the time it gets to your tap, 45 seconds to 60 seconds have passed. So that's the reason, one reason why they have this hot water tank here. The second reason is that things like dishwashers, things that have low draw, a dishwasher may not be able to kick this thing off. So it may pull in cold water the entire time into your dishwasher because the Quietside can't detect that amount of hot water is going through your system. So if it's a low flow situation, it may just pass water through itself and never, ever, ever kick on. So that's the second reason to have this. Now, some people are getting lukewarm water into their pipes. So the couple things you should do is take this blue cap off here. I should have brought a screwdriver, but you can take this blue cap off. Right, here we go. Let me see if I can really yank it off here. Yeah. And what you want to do, that has this funny triangle piece here. What you want to do is back this out as far as you can. Maybe some pliers or something. This will allow maximum amount of hot water into your system. So essentially you have a cold water supply coming in here. This is a hot water supply going to your house, and then it mixes here, and then this continues on out to the house. But the problem being, it's not a problem, but it's a regulation now that all hot water supplies need to have a mixing valve, and that's to prevent scalding. So you want to make sure that that's set pretty high. Also, inside over here, there's a temperature dial in here that you can unscrew, and you can set your hot water tank to a higher temperature so you can crank it up. Now, the only thing you got to watch out for, though, is that you don't set it too high. And second, because what will happen is that water will start coming out of the pressure relief valve here. And secondly, it'll decrease your life expectancy of this tank, so it'll reduce it. So I'm not sure if Alliance Power actually covers the tank or not. I think I've seen a couple tanks come through being exchanged, but I'm not sure who's paying for that. Just another quick piece. If you're getting actually hot water in your cold water, what I've done is that I've put what we call a check valve here. And this is a shark bite check valve. And it prevents water from getting pushed back into the system. So for a couple of years I was getting hot water, like lukewarm water in my cold water. I couldn't have a glass of cold water. And that was because the hot water from the tank was actually being fed back into the system here. So I put a check valve here that I purchased for about $15 or so. I just cut the pipe, and it's shark bite connection, so you don't need any tools. You just need to put the pipes together, and that's the end of that. And you have to make sure the flow of the arrow is in the right spot. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see, I turn on this so you can see the arrow there. And if you ever wanted to know what this red pump is here, this area right here, this red pump here is actually a circulation valve, and that's what keeps the hot water hot in your tank. It actually circulates it through. So when the temperature of the tank sort of comes down past a threshold, it'll actually pump water through the system back into the Quietside boiler, and then circulate it through for a minute or two to heat it right back up. So that's the purpose of that pump. So I think I've pretty much covered it off of what I wanted to mention to you guys. Just remember to keep this at max. Keep this at whatever temperature you like, but you know, generally the hotter the better. If you have kids, then you do need to watch out about this. And make sure your summer button is off. That's the key. That's the key. And remember, if you're not getting heat, make sure you're on heat upstairs. Even if it's on heat upstairs, you have to check this Quietside thermostat here to make sure your settings are correct. I hope that helps, guys, and good luck with the heat tonight.